Episode 3 of Toxic Town continues to fight for justice as we jump further in time, with the mothers and Des working towards building their case. Des reiterates that they need to prove 4 things. First, that a cluster of women who carried babies at the same time were affected. Second, that there was a reason why these women were affected. Third, that the toxins had a direct impact on their unborn children. And fourth, that there is proof of knowledge and negligence on the part of the council. Sam once again confronts Roy in a council meeting, revealing that Rhodes and Miller have been profiteering from the halted investigations. However, Roy dismisses his concerns. Meanwhile, Ted has resigned himself to staying at home. The timeline then jumps to 2002, where, in a meeting with council members, a doctor claims there were no irregularities in the birth defects. He insists that it's impossible to determine whether they were caused by the toxins. The council also states that all relevant documents were lost in a fire, bringing the case to a standstill. Later though, Des informs the group that another report has surfaced indicating no water contamination, which further weakens their case. Susan begins to suspect that Des is backing out, leading her and a few others to break into the contractor's site to collect a water sample. However, Des reminds them that proving there is toxic water at the site isn't enough. They need to show that it contaminated the residential water supply. Despite her doubts, Susan realises Des is still committed to the case, which certainly reassures her. Meanwhile, Roy decides that Sam will not be contesting the upcoming elections. At school, Connor gets mocked for his deformity, leading to a fight and his subsequent suspension. Elsewhere, Des and his partner seek a second opinion on the health report that claimed there were no significant birth defects in Corby. They eventually meet Dr. Parker for further analysis. In another turn of events, corruption allegations against Pat are actually dismissed. Sam, determined to stand against Roy, decides to run for election independently, accusing Roy of orchestrating the destruction of evidence. After several attempts, Des finally informs Susan that the health report is flawed. The error lies in how the study included the entire Kettering area, including Corby, and then compared those numbers solely against Corby, leading to double counting. The corrected data confirms that there was, in fact, a cluster of birth defects in Corby. He also shares that they've secured a new segment to spread awareness, and he wants Susan and Maggie to appear on it. Although Derek had previously convinced Maggie to leave the Mothers' group, she decides to join Susan on the news broadcast after learning about the statistical error. The broadcast airs, urging other affected women to come forward and contact Des. Later, Des meets another expert who suggests that cadmium could be the cause of the defects. However, to prove this in court, a fetal medical specialist must be 95% certain. The doctor advises them to focus on upper and lower limb defects, as these could be linked to the pollutants with the required certainty. This means narrowing their case to just 18 women, excluding others, including Tracey. Meanwhile, Sam loses the election just as Connor undergoes another surgery, with the worst case scenario being the amputation of his hand. The next day, Sam delivers new evidence to Des while Tracey visits Susan to keep her company. Thankfully, Connor returns home safely. While walking with Des, Tracey casually mentions how dusty the area used to be due to the lorries and chemical spills. This revelation sparks an idea. Des realises that toxic dust containing cadmium may have been the real culprit. In the next meeting with the mothers, he updates the group, explaining that the expert believes the contaminated dust travelled for miles, affecting the entire town. He asks the mothers to compile photographs from that time, anything that can prove the presence of toxic dust. He also informs them that, thanks to Sam, they now have documents proving the council's negligence. The episode then ends on a rather tense note, as Des's co-worker urges him to inform Tracey that she has been excluded from the case. However, Des decides to hold off, knowing how much this case actually means to her. For Tracey, the lawsuit isn't just about a settlement, it's about justice for the life of her daughter. This episode closely follows the developments in the case, particularly highlighting Des's efforts to gather the necessary evidence to prove that toxic exposure led to birth defects in Corby. The story also delves into the personal struggles of the affected families, particularly Connor, whose deformity not only makes him a target for ridicule, but also becomes a medical emergency that could drastically impact his quality of life. The financial burden of ongoing surgeries adds another layer of hardship. The tension certainly builds here as the case gains momentum, with the council council ramping up efforts to silence opposition. The episode's conclusion is particularly emotional as we see the potential heartbreak for women like Tracey, who may be excluded from the lawsuit. For her, this case is about more than just financial compensation. It's about holding those responsible accountable for the irreversible harm done to her child. With this setup, the finale promises to be just as gripping and powerful as the whole series has been so far. Thanks for watching, and do let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Smash a like or subscribe to the channel, your support is very much appreciated. I'm Greg Wheeler, and from all of us over here at The Review Geek, we'll see you on the next video.